All right, what's going on, guys? So in this video, I want to share exactly how you can start winning your weekends, right? How to stop letting your weekends constantly set you back with your fitness goals. Because a lot of people are in that never-ending cycle of, being locked in Sunday through Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday comes around, they drink too much, eat too many calories, and they're constantly setting themselves back from their fitness goals. So this video really is just going to break down the strategies that have worked for me, how to get through the weekend and not feeling like you set yourself back, actually making sure you're staying on track with your fitness goals and setting yourself up for a productive week the following week. So with that being said, let's get into it. All right, so there's three main things I want to talk about. It's your mindset, right? Changing your losing mindset to an actual winning mindset, having the strategies, knowing what you can do to make the most out of your weekend. And then third, making sure you're planning ahead to set yourself up for success after the weekend for the following week. So first things first is just changing your mindset around the weekends, right? This is where a lot of people go wrong because you want to understand that 2/7 of your week is the weekend. That's 104 days out of your year is the weekend. And a lot of people keep writing their weekends off, saying, oh, I'm not going to be on track. I'll get back on track Monday. And you can still see progress doing that, but you're not going to see the progress that you want, especially with your fat loss, because you can offset a lot of your calorie deficit in literally one day, especially 2 days, right? So that's the first perspective change. And the second is you want to understand that doing what everyone else is doing is going to get you results like everyone else, right? If you're like, oh, well, all my friends are drinking and eating fast food and skipping their workouts, well, that's going to keep them where they're at. And if you want to get ahead of them, then you have to do things that they're not doing. Getting your workouts in, making smart food decisions, planning ahead, right? Even Jerry Rice says, and I really like this quote, today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can do what others can't. And that really means taking the imperfect actions that everyone else is not doing, so you're setting yourself ahead of everyone else. And once you understand that, then you can start to look at the weekends as an opportunity for self-growth, right? You have all this time. Most of you, it's time off, you're not working. You should use this time to get some sort of a win, whether it's getting your workout in, maybe it's improving a skill, learning something new, right? And I even give the example with myself. The reason I have this business and this platform is because I spent years using my weekends to get ahead, right? Especially, when I had a full-time job, I was working 40, 50 hours a week. I didn't have a lot of time during the week to build this business, to make content. I did all of that on the weekends where I knew that I had all this time that I could use to set myself ahead and help me achieve the goals I want to achieve, right? So that's really something you want to keep in mind. And then the third thing is you want to stop writing off your weekends, right? I was with a buddy the other day and it was Saturday night, everyone's getting ready to go out, and one of my friends said to my other friend, hey, want to play golf tomorrow, right? I'm playing golf. Do you want to come with us? And he literally said, sorry, I can't go. I'm going to be too hungover the next day, right? And I was thinking about that. And I was like, man, this hasn't even happened yet, but he already lost the day because he just accepted the fact that he wasn't going to do anything tomorrow because he's going to be too hungover. That was just crazy to me. And I hear it all the time. I even used to think that way, right? I wouldn't plan things on my Sunday because I knew I'd go out, drink too much anyway. So it's really a mental frame switch of even if you are going to go out, don't get to a point where you're ruining the next day. If anything, if drinking that much to a point where you're so hungover, you can't even do anything the next day, that's just a weak mental frame, right? Do you really need to drink that much to have a good time? So you really just got to change your perspective around that. And the last thing is ditching the all or nothing mindset. As I mentioned before, if you're constantly just saying you're going to get back on track Monday, right? If one little screw up causes you to go all in, be like, oh, I already messed up, might as well binge eat, might as well skip my workouts. You got to ditch that all or nothing mentality, right? It's okay to be screwing up a couple times, but when you let it get out of hand, right? When a couple hundred calories turns into 1,000, 2,000 calories, that's when you have a problem. So that's really the mindset shift you need, right? Getting off the hamster wheel of taking one step forward, one step backwards. So that's the first step, changing your mindset, right? Once you've done that, you can actually start to stack wins. And as I mentioned before, every day, Saturday, Sunday, you should try to get some sort of activity in. Whether it's getting your workout in, getting some steps in, maybe it's playing a sport like golf or pickleball, right? You want to get active and burn some calories because that's going to put you in a position to stay on track with your goals. Second thing is you want to improve a skill. As I mentioned before, this could be reading a book, watching a YouTube video on something you're trying to improve. Maybe it's practicing an instrument or starting to practice an instrument, or maybe it's even starting a hobby, something you've been putting off, but you want to get into it, right? Use your time to stack W's and move forward towards some sort of goal, whether it's fitness related or not. Because the more W's you stack, the more self-belief you're going to build and the more confidence you will have. So now we have the part that you're probably waiting for, right? Let's say you are stacking W's, you're using your time wisely, but you know you're still going to go out, right? I still go out. You want to have some fun. How do we do that without screwing everything up? And I struggled with this for a while. Weekends were literally holding me back for a very long time until I realized I was looking at everything all wrong. What you want to do is you want to plan ahead and actually think about, hey, what could I be doing to make sure this day is a win? How can I get through this event, have fun, and stay on track, right? And really what you want to do is every weekend, let's take a Saturday, for example, you want to have a calorie target. Most of you during the week have a calorie target, right? You know how many calories you're trying to hit, but then weekends, you just throw everything out the window. That's not what you want to do. You want to give yourself a target and you want to be realistic. If you're in a deficit, you're eating 2,200 calories all week, it probably doesn't make sense to try and hit 2,200 calories, hit a deficit on a Saturday if you know you're going to go out and have drinks, right? You want to be realistic. What I recommend is giving yourself a strategic refeed day where you let yourself eat at maintenance, because it's a lot more realistic that you're going to hit around your maintenance than hit a deficit when you're adding in the extra calories from drinks. Or maybe you're going out for a big dinner and you know you're going to have appetizers and entrees and desserts, right? You want to give yourself calories to work with, but still be at a point where you can actually think, hey, I could probably make this work. I could probably finish the day with a win. Because if you think that there's no way you're hitting your calories today, then it's not going to happen. So that's the first thing you want to do. Have a target. Let's say it's 2,500 calories, right? The next thing you want to do is you want to plan ahead and be smart to figure out how you can actually hit the 2,500 calories. And there's 5 things I recommend. The first is intermittent fasting. And you don't necessarily have to do intermittent fasting, but the premise is if you're pushing your first meal a couple hours into the day, then you're giving yourself a lot of calories to work with later when you're the most hungry, right? If you wake up and have some coffee or tea, have some water, maybe have some electrolytes, right? You're kind of blunting that hunger and you're pushing your first meal a couple hours in the day. It's a lot easier to hit the calorie target versus if you're waking up first thing in the morning and slamming hundreds of calories, it's going to make it a lot difficult. Second is having a high protein lunch and dinner, right? If you're just going out for drinks, have a high protein lunch, have a high protein dinner, try to stick to satiating foods. Ideally, don't go too crazy in calories, right? You want to be smart, give yourself a budget to work with later, but you really just want to make the most out of your meals during the day and save yourself calories for when you do go out. And if you're going out for dinner, if that's the big occasion, it's the same thing, right? Eating a lunch where you're getting in some protein, but giving yourself plenty of calories to work with. So when you're at the dinner table, you're not just having salad and chicken and rice and super bland meals. You can actually have the stuff that you want, because it really sucks when you go into dinner knowing you really don't have many calories left to use. Third is you want to give yourself a buffer by getting activity in. If you shoot for 10K steps every Saturday, then when you go out, you already have a buffer of a couple hundred calories that you can use to spend because you've burnt those calories earlier in the day, right? The steps is really insurance. It gives you more calories to work with by causing you to burn more calories throughout the day. So those are the 3 things to do prior. The 4th is actually when you are out, let's say you're drinking, right? You want to stick to low calorie drinks. I like to have tequila soda or vodka soda. You can put a lime in there. If you're going to have beer, stick to a light beer, like a Coors Light. I will sometimes have something like a High Noon or a Sun Cruiser because they're 100 calories and you can kind of do the mental math of 100 calorie per drink, right? All these drinks are either 100 calories or less. So it's easy to be able to be like, all right, I had 4 drinks. That's around 400 calories. You want to have an idea of how many calories you're taking in through drinks. And it doesn't really make sense to have drinks that's over 100 calories because that just adds up very quick. So ideally stick to something that's 100 or less calories. So that's the selection you want to have. And then the last point is you want to have a plan for after you drink, right? When you get back, the first thing you want to do is you want to hydrate. A lot of people forget to drink water, which makes them even more hungry. And that makes you more likely to screw up on your calories. Most people, it's not the calories from the drinks itself. It's the food decisions after you drink that screws you over. It's getting the late night pizza or fast food, right? So you want to hydrate. That's going to reduce a lot of your hunger. And then if you are going to eat, you want to have a plan of what you're going to have, right? Ideally, before you go out, you want to think about, hey, what am I going to have when I get back? If you have something waiting for you in the fridge and you count the calories of it, maybe you give yourself 300, 400 calories, then when you get back, you don't have that decision fatigue. You're not letting the drunk and tired version of yourself make the food decisions. You're letting your sober version of yourself make the food decisions. So it's a lot easier to stay on track with your calories, right? So what I personally do, either I make leftovers of the dinner I had, put it in the fridge, or I get something like a Greek yogurt put a bunch of honey on top. Literally tastes like a dessert, 300 calories, maybe 400, and it's filling. So I come back, slam that, and I kill my hunger. I don't screw up, and I go to bed. If you do all those 5 things, it is very easy to stay on track. Yeah, it does require some planning. It does require some restraint. But if you're thinking ahead and you're actually mindful of this stuff, then it's a lot easier to stay on track with your calories, right? Hitting the maintenance isn't too hard. Even if you have 4 or 5 drinks, 400 to 500 calories, you can still hit the maintenance, maybe go over a couple hundred calories. Not the end of the world. But what you want to prevent is going over by 1,000 calories, 2,000 calories. It's not that hard if you do everything wrong. So hopefully you found that helpful. The last thing I want to talk about is actually how to set yourself up for success during the week. And this is where the weekly goal setting comes in. Every Sunday, what I personally do, what I tell my clients, is to schedule your workouts in your calendar, right? If you actually schedule your workouts and you know the exact time and day that you're doing your workouts, then during the week, you have no excuse to skip that, right? View them like it's a work meeting. You wouldn't just skip a work meeting, right? No, you go to the gym if you have it in your calendar. So that is the first thing you want to do. Second is you want to get groceries. Make sure you have all the food you need to stay on track. And if you do benefit from meal prep, maybe that's a good day to do that as well. Especially for those of you who work, maybe the food options aren't the best. Easiest way to stay on track is just to bring your own food. And meal prep, doing it all on Sunday, makes it a lot easier. Last thing is you want to actually set goals. And what I personally like to do is just write down 5 things that if you do them, that would make the week a win. What are 5 things you could do next week that would make this week a win? It could be as simple as that. If you actually write them down, have them so you can visually see them every day, then at the end of the week, it's a lot easier to know for a fact that those goals will actually happen, right? If you write down exactly what is going to make the week a win, then you have the tools to make the week a win. Or if you don't even think about it, it's easy to just go through the week and realize you're in the same exact spot as you were a week ago. So that is really one important thing you want to do. Actually set goals, schedule your workouts, get your groceries, make sure you're set up for success the following week. So that is it for the video. Hopefully you found this helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.